So we're grateful to be able to work with these amazing individuals through our work at OneGoal. Here in a minute, you're going to hear from Dr. Austin Todd. He's the director of high school academies and pathways for post-secondary readiness at Indianapolis Public Schools. And my colleague, Danyeil Reese, she's a post-secondary leadership coach here at OneGoal, and Amanda Nault, assistant director of teaching and learning for Waukegan Public Schools, also here in Illinois. So I'm personally very excited to have the opportunity to learn from these brilliant folks who have generously agreed to share their time and knowledge and expertise with us regarding how counselors can strengthen their leadership influence systems and align with partners to better serve students. Before we jump into our discussion, though, I'm going to start with a quick overview of OneGoal. It's like my favorite thing to talk about. So OneGoal's vision is that every student will have an equitable opportunity to achieve their greatest post-secondary aspirations. So we know that students have an incredible amount of potential, and the disparity in post-secondary outcomes doesn't reflect our students' lack of ambition or potential. It reflects the opportunity gap that they face in and out of school. So it's a systems problem, and that's what we're working on, tackling here at OneGoal. So on average, students only get a total of about 38 minutes of advising, and we know that that just isn't enough. Less than an hour of planning for one of the biggest decisions of their lives. But imagine if every student in your school were affirmed, engaged, and supported in reaching their greatest post-secondary aspirations. It's a beautiful thing to spend some time thinking about. That's our dream. OneGoal's mission is to lead the movement to transform post-secondary advising and support. So how do we do that? We work in communities throughout the country, primarily through two types of partnerships. First is our direct impact model, OneGoal, which is a daily class for high school juniors and seniors, which with an extra year of support during the first year of transition to their post-secondary education. So just like math and English are taught during the school day, we believe that post-secondary planning must be taught and with equal attention, and that teachers and school staff can be supported to effectively deliver that knowledge. So that's the first way. The second way that we engage with our partners is through our OneGoal Leadership Network, which you'll hear a little bit more about from Danyeil, who's one of our coaches for this solution. So the OneGoal Leadership Network provides expert coaching and community of learning for school and district leaders. We help them build and strengthen systems and structures that will lead to strong post-secondary outcomes to close equity gaps for their students. I've had the pleasure of joining a few of our Assemble sessions where we bring counselors and school leaders from different regions together for a day of learning. And it is such an incredible community to just sort of sit back and observe. So yeah, that's OneGoal. But today we have reached over 150,000 students across 10 states in the country, which we're really proud of. And that impact of OneGoal on students is clear. 80% of OneGoal high school graduates enroll in a post-secondary institution compared to 51% of their peers from similar backgrounds. So yeah, that's OneGoal in Reader's Digest version of our work. But to learn more, visit our website, which is onegoal.org, and you can find a link to that in the chat as well.
Thanks. So I want to begin in grounding us in why this conversation matters. Counselors really are the connectors and the key collaborators in schools. They support teachers around college and career advising. They bridge the experiences of students and families to their shared post-secondary goals. One thing that is interesting that you mentioned caseloads is because, according to American School Counselor Association, ASCA, the average caseload for a counselor sits at about 375 students, right? And this is all before you factor in the wide range of responsibilities they carry, like academic advising, mental health support, testing, scheduling, and all the things. So with so many competing priorities, it's understandable that leading system-wide post-secondary efforts will be a challenge for anyone in that position. It's not a challenge because counselors don't believe in the power and impact of a comprehensive college and career advising program, but it is because the system is just not set up to give them the time or the autonomy to do so. So that is both the challenge and the opportunity. So this is a question at the heart of our conversation today. How can we empower counselors to lead, to influence systems, and to drive results? School counselors are in a unique position to connect student aspirations with district goals. The question is not about adding more to their plates, but it's really about giving them the authority and the support to truly lead systems change. Counselors are often stretched thin, balancing resources and student needs. Despite high caseloads and limited time, which you guys all acknowledge, they're still the trusted adults in the building that students go to. We know that that is a powerful role and one that deserves strong support. Many districts have a clear vision for post-secondary readiness, but the implementation often breaks down at the school level. Counselors aren't always given the data, the tools, the training, or the dedicated time to lead those efforts. So it's not always translated into our daily practice. And then there's the added layer of complexity when multiple teams are working towards similar goals. So work is often siloed when you have counselors, CTE staff, and then other post-secondary leads, running parallel initiatives without full alignment. When those roles overlap, when those initiatives overlap, it can be unclear on who owns what. So that confusion can often dilute the impact that we have on students.
Danyeil, thank you so much. And I have a feeling, although we can't see you, we had plenty of people joining us today who were nodding along feverishly to everything that you just had to say. Wow, yeah, our counselors are up against a lot. But thank you so much, Danyeil, for bringing that incredible information to us. Before we get into our panel discussion, though, we have another quick short poll for you. I want to invite Dr. Austin Dodd to share information about the district at Indianapolis Public Schools. Should I call you Dr. Dodd, or is Austin okay?
Austin's good, Stephen. Thanks so much.
Okay. All right, great. Take it away.
Yeah, thanks so much. I appreciate the opportunity to be on the panel today. Just a little bit of context about both myself and my background that I'm bringing to the panel and the school district for which I serve. I serve as one of our district level directors on our post-secondary readiness team, overseeing advanced academics, high school programming, and our future centers, which is what we call our college and career readiness centers. My background, though, I come to this work as a former high school counselor and high school counseling coordinator. So I have both the distinct pleasure of bringing to you some experiences as a former practitioner in the building, serving students, and now at the district level working in systems. IPS is the largest urban district in the state of Indiana, and we have a deep commitment to ensuring that each of our students every single day graduate ready for success, pursuing any of their 3 E options: enrollment, enlistment, or employment. My department specifically, the Post-Secondary Readiness Department, you may hear me affectionately call to it the PSR team, but I will try to keep acronyms out as there are enough in education as it is. We really support that 3E model across the entire district in a variety of ways. We focus on building the systems to scale opportunities in college and career readiness work for Indianapolis. This includes everything from high school career-themed pathways in the CTE realm, advanced academics like early college and international baccalaureate programming, counseling and advising, our graduation rate and on-track work, middle school programming and JROTC, and much more, as you can imagine. We serve about 30,000 students across the district. We have a portfolio model where we have district managed schools, innovation schools, and charter schools. We have 4 district managed high schools serving grades 9 through 12. And across the district, we employ approximately 46 licensed school counselors, and we have 22 college and career staff that I'll speak about a little bit later. A predominant amount of our work from our department serves at the secondary level, and so we also have 7 middle schools that serve grades 6 through 8. Speaking of our future centers, one of the cornerstones to that strategy of college and career readiness for our district is that future center model. And this has been our response and evolution to the challenging capacity that our school counselors face across the district. We recognize, as alluded to earlier in the conversation, that our counselors are tasked with managing crisis, scheduling, implementing comprehensive school counseling programs, and any other thing that might land on their plate. And that we understand that there continue to be more and more legislative mandates in this area that typically would fall on a school counselor's plate, and it's not sustainable. And so our future center models are a dedicated hub that are staffed with specialized personnel that have clear roles in supporting a comprehensive school counseling program and complementing that work of a traditional school counselor. This was a strategic delineation that our team decided to evaluate and support the core roles of counselors so that we can better support our students with FAFSA, things like FAFSA completion, college applications, career discovery meetings, and much, much more. So I look forward to joining the panel and hearing from others and supporting any questions that you guys might have. I'll pass it back over to you, Stephen.
Okay, Austin, thank you so much for that. Really helpful grounding information about Indianapolis Public Schools. Next, we're going to invite Amanda to come off of mute and turn her video on. Hello, Amanda. If you wouldn't mind sharing with us a little bit about Waukegan Public Schools.
Hi, Stephen. Thank you. Hi, everyone. So I'm Amanda Nault. I'm with Waukegan Public Schools, the Assistant Director for Teaching and Learning, Counseling. That sounds a little strange maybe to some of you, but I actually oversee all of our post-secondary efforts and counseling, K through 12. So in Waukegan, we have a very large high school, 4,000 students. We have 5 middle schools and we have 15 elementary schools. At our high school level, we have our 20 counselors, and then we also have a college and career readiness team. Those two teams really work together to make sure that we have a tiered system for implementing our college and career readiness work. Just to give you a little bit of background, we really went through kind of like a rebuilding about 4 or 5 years ago, rebuilding some of our counseling side of things. And in the process, we now have a college and career coordinator, and she really built up our college and career readiness team. And that team consists of 4 people that work across district K through 12, really in implementing our tier 1 of just college readiness. And they have really put in place different post-secondary initiatives to support students and families. A little bit about myself. I was a high school teacher. I worked in Chicago Public Schools. Then I went all the way to a warm state in Florida to Broward County, where I was a counseling director, and then came back to the cold for these lovely frost warnings in Waukegan, which is directly smack dab in between Milwaukee and Chicago. And I'm here now and working with CTE, counseling, post-secondary, and academics.
Amanda, don't go anywhere. Stay on camera because we're going to welcome everybody else on now too. And thank you again for the grounding information about Waukegan Public Schools. I think it's so helpful to hear from our experts about your personal context of where you're coming from, because we know every school is a special, unique snowflake, and every school has its own different contexts. So I think for the folks that are joining us, it's good to know where you all are coming from. So now this is the moment you've been waiting for. Everyone, it's our panel discussion. I'm going to play Carrie Gross and ask some questions of you all, and I'm thrilled to moderate this conversation with 3 incredible leaders who are here transforming the work to support students in their post-secondary journeys. So we will weave in questions throughout the conversation, so please continue to use the Q&A feature to submit your questions. I'm looking at all of you participants that are joining us today. Definitely let's try to make this interactive, and we'll try to get to your questions. But let's start with just like a grounding question. And this was one I had, which is, how have you seen the role of the school counselor just change over the last decade or two, especially when it comes to supporting students' post-secondary readiness? So I want to start with Austin, but I'll give each of you a chance to answer the question.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. I imagine many of you can likely resonate with this. We all believe that college and career readiness work is very valuable to the students and communities that we serve. And over the last a couple of years in Indiana specifically, and many of you may be able to relate to this, we've seen many mandates come down at the state level, which would have naturally been just part of a comprehensive school counseling program, right, out of good intention for students, and the work that a counselor wants to do. On the flip side, that good intention has now turned into statutory mandates. And so making sure that we're compliant and that we're capturing those is really, really important, and a big reason that we've revised our model over the last couple of years.
So it's gone from a nice to have to a mandate. And that's one important change. And yeah, Amanda, how about you? What are you hearing? What do you think is the difference?
I would echo everything that Austin said. I think that even in Illinois, on top of the mandates and things that are constantly being added and changed, and making sure that you're aware and in the know of just legislation, all of that. I think just the knowledge of post-secondary, I'm even thinking in terms of like applications, right? So matching students up with what their post-secondary goal is, whether it is a trade, a tech, a 2-year school, a 4-year school, whatever it might be. And just knowing all of that can sometimes be mind-blowing. It can overwhelm people. So really having the expertise in that area, let alone if you add on something like an NCAA and a student who has like some special criteria. I would also say that adding on, even 10 years ago, as we started adding on more and more social emotional learning, adding on more and more mental health, then we go through COVID and we're adding on even more mental health, and making sure that counselors are doing just more intense work with all of that. They just have to know all of these things and be able to plan for all of this. And it has just added so much to their plate.
Yeah. Wearing so many hats.
Yes.
Danyeil, you have kind of a front row seat to a lot of different contexts, working with school partners in many different regions. What are you seeing as significant changes to this landscape for counselors?
I think everything that was mentioned, and I think one of the great things about how that role is evolving now is that they are no longer siloed, right? So you're used to having, student services on the 3rd floor of a building or back in the back, and you never saw the counselors, mingling and talking to folks and engaging. But now that is different. It is not a siloed role anymore. You see counselors partnering with teachers and community members and staff to support students. I think that's great. You also have a lot of schools now that have incorporated post-secondary leadership teams. So the counselor, teachers, other admin that are a part of these sort of collaborative teams that have evolved. I think that's been one of the best changes we've seen.
So counselors obviously play a really critical role in guiding students towards post-secondary success. And this will be a theme today, I think, is the heavy caseloads, limited resources, competing priorities. So from your perspective, what does strong leadership for college and career readiness look like for counselors, and why is it so important in today's schools? And I think there's a lot of people that would claim ownership over this area. But counselors bring a lot of expertise that other folks in the building might not. But they may not always feel most well positioned to be decision makers and lead the charge, to share best practices. But when you've seen in your schools, and from your own perspective and your own history and your own roles that you've had in schools, what did that strong leadership look like? Actually, let's go with Amanda first.
So I would say number one, the strong leadership, like in my role specifically, is the advocacy for them. When I started this position, it was really just assessing with the counselors where they were and what they needed. Similar to what the poll results showed us, right? They really needed the time, and they needed just the knowledge to do the work. That was what came up with our counselors, even in our district. And so it was really getting them together, making sure they had the time, making sure they had the knowledge to do some of our things. We're really lucky that we have a 250 to 1 caseload. So if you're looking to come to lovely Lake County, Illinois, you just let me know because we're always hiring and adding counselors. Shameless plug. But I think just advocating for them to make sure that they have what they need. I will also say that I've used data many, many times, whether it was in CPS, Broward County, Chicago Public Schools, or Broward County. I am a big fan of the 5-day time calculator that counselors do. I'm currently having our counselors do that. So if any of them are on here and they're unhappy with me about doing that, there is a reason as why we do that. It's because it really can help advocate for, just issues that we're having in time and what we need, or it can also help advocate for positions. And I really see that as my role. We're also really lucky because at least at the high school level, we have 2 assistant principals, and we have our college and career coordinator who have 2 of them have backgrounds in school counseling. So it's really great to have leaders at that level who have school counseling backgrounds because they advocate in that way too. And just making sure that they have what they need. I will say, yeah, I think just making sure they have what they need has probably been the best, listening to them to see what they need.
Austin, what about you? Picture of strong leadership for counselors when counselors have kind of led the charge on some of these important changes.
Yeah, I think I want to draw upon the statement that Amanda made about advocacy. When I think of advocacy, I think about a strong trait of a leader counselor is being inquisitive. It being in a system, whether you're in a small district or you're in a large district, it can feel like things are being done to you, or that there are things that are happening, or decisions that are being made without your consent. And by asking questions, I think you position yourself right in the middle of being able to provide your expert content and lens into what's happening in and around you. And then it also positions you amongst other leaders, whether it's a principal or a district leader, to be able to provide that advice or that experience that you have and what you hope for your program and your services to look like in the future. I would also, shameless plug for school counselors, because I love you all as a counselor, as what Amanda was saying, like on our post-secondary readiness team at the district level, not all of the positions require it for it to be a licensed school counselor, right? But many of our positions are filled by licensed school counselors. And I had somebody ask me, why the heck is everybody on the PSR team a licensed counselor? What's the draw here? And I said, I think it's because counselors are drawn to making systemic change and making sure that we're supporting counselors and student services across the building, whether that's a CTE director. Our CTE director was a former licensed counselor, right? Like literally everybody on our team is in that space. And I think it's because we want to give back and make meaningful change for our students in our community.
I love that you pointed out counselors see the big picture and care about this from like a mission standpoint, because that's definitely our experience at OneGoal anytime we work with counselors. And we talk all the time about, counselors don't have the capacity. And that's why, for example, you might need OneGoal or another third-party service provider to help you do this work. And it's not because counselors don't care, it's because they don't have the capacity. They do care. They're very mission-oriented from our experience. Danyeil, tell us from your experience when you've seen good leadership. I know you walk into schools all the time and you see people that are eager to lead and they might not know how to get started.
For sure. I think first, like establishing that vision for excellence in student services, really to be working towards a balanced program that incorporates academics, SEL supports, college and career advising, and really prioritizing that one-on-one advising with students. I think when I see programs that struggle, sometimes they're focused on like specific students and not really advocating. I'm going to use that word that Amanda and Austin both use, like not advocating for all students. I think that is the first way to really show your leadership is by, really leading with equity and thinking about how to support all students in your work.
And so it's not just students that are really high achieving academically, and it's not the students for whom there's a lot of services for who are at the lower quartile, but that 80% who sit in the middle, who, also might have aspirations after high school. That's such an important point, Danyeil. Austin, this is a question just for you. Can you share how at IPS, how you guys support counselors in leading post-secondary initiatives across multiple high schools?
Yeah, for sure. So as I said, we support 4 district managed high schools, each who bring their own identity to this work, right? Each campus has its own personality, its own staff. And so we have coordinators at our district level that are supporting those school-based staff and elevating those school-based staff counselors' voices in a variety of ways, whether that is on the instructional leadership team, the early college school leadership team, to make sure that that counseling lens is consistently provided. What we run the risk by not bringing licensed counselors into the core of the leadership discussions is we run the risk of counseling services being on the fringe of what the core identity is of the school and how we service our school and our students. And so I think about, we've got post-secondary readiness counselors leading early college work on the campus with their assistant principals. We've got some PSR counselors who, are leading a community efforts at their high school campus. From a district level, what we've done is, we'll talk a little bit later more about our future center roles, but we've drawn clear delineations of what each licensed position and non-licensed position are responsible when it comes to data metrics, whether that is an internal data accountability measure that we've set for our district because we hope to see these measures move forward, or a federal or state mandate. And we've seen some really big wins in the last year or two by having very clear expectations and measures for accountability for each position.
And Danyeil, I guess kind of a follow-up. I'm wondering, how your work as a leadership coach sort of complements. We have the train going by, you guys. I told you it was going to happen. Danyeil, how does your work complement or enhance some of what Austin was talking about, but also broadly the, prioritizing post-secondary advising and support within the counseling teams and across districts?
Sure. I work with, as you know, districts in multiple states. I work with schools of all sizes, but they often share some common challenges around, supporting college and career readiness. I think our special sauce, our approach is that we take time to really understand the district needs. We assess, we use data to identify areas where we, need additional supports or where there are gaps in service. Our work really is grounded around continuous improvement. So we are constantly using data to see trends so that we can implement strategies that support the work that's happening on campuses. I think one of the areas that our program solution offers that is one of the best is that collaborative piece where folks are able to connect with folks across the state or across the country, actually, around similar problems. We have an assemble where there's a communities of practice, and we bring folks together where they are able to share and I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought, where they are able to connect and collaborate and discuss challenges that they're having and seek solutions to those challenges.
As someone who frequently loses their train of thought, Danyeil, I feel you. But as I was saying, I've been to those assemble sessions, and the work that you all are leading to sort of strike and spark conversation, sharing best practices. It is kind of a beautiful thing to see. So I applaud you guys. It's great work. I want to go back to Amanda. So at Waukegan, you've really worked on aligning counseling initiatives with MTSS, CTE, post-secondary planning, teams that have maybe disparate and different priorities. So what does that alignment look like in practice? How are you getting everyone on the same page?
Yeah, thank you. So in Waukegan, we have all of these different big teaming structures and departments, right? So we have MTSS at all of our buildings where we're applying our tier 2, 3 teams. We have a pretty large CTE department that also is aligned with a tech campus for our county and district, and we send the largest amount of students there for our entire county. We send about almost 300. So we send a lot of students there. And then obviously just our post-secondary, which we're constantly trying to improve. It's really been a process. Like I said, we've really done a turnaround in the last kind of 4 years. So it has been building kind of a framework out, using data. Where are we? What do our students need? What does our staff need? Not just our post-secondary team, but our post-secondary team, our CTE team, our teaching staff, right? I will even say in Illinois, we have CTE pathways that are certified by the state. And we realized pretty quickly that people were using even the term pathways in a way that was incorrect. So we kind of had to go on like a roadshow tour, myself and the CTE coordinator, and really make sure that people were understanding what a CTE pathway was, because we were using this term and it wasn't correct. We did a lot of sequencing of courses and making sure that people knew what they were. One of our assistant principals worked really, really hard on making sure just cogs and things were cleaned up. Essentially built out our framework. And if we were doing something, it was put on paper. Anything we were doing. Like I said, we are a unit district, so we also have pre-K through 8th grade. So same thing there. Anything we were doing was put on paper because they are going to transition up to our 9th grade. Our team, counseling post-secondary, we all worked on something called the Illinois PACE framework, which is really our college and career readiness standards at each grade. And we did that for all grade levels, came together and really wrote those all out for each grade level and made that public. So it's been a lot of collaboration. I think we're starting, now that we've done sort of the in-house work with those teams and we're trained up more and we kind of know the plan, now we're starting to outward face a bit more and starting to work more with like the teaching staff and starting to push out that knowledge more. So that's sort of the next phase of it.
This is a sidebar question, but I'm curious, as you are making that transition, are you getting any early signs from teachers in their sort of like openness to sort of collaborating with you because I feel like that's another big piece of this. And it points to also the way counselors need to show up as leaders is to align teachers on the strategies too, because they play such a big part. What's been their appetite? What feedback are you hearing back, if you have yet?
I think high school teachers have always, I'm not going to say all, but I think high school teachers have always just naturally, because it's high school, had a knowledge and an interest in post-secondary, right? Because they're having those conversations with students. But one of the things that we have learned is that when the staff may have applied to college is different than how the current students are applying to college. So, what I did in school is different from what the students are doing in school now. So just getting them up to speed on what the times currently look like, and what the trends are in post-secondary applications and futures is part of that knowledge retraining kind of, or informing. Where we're also seeing a big shift, and this is thanks to our college and career readiness team that works at those lower grade levels, is we're seeing a lot more shift in our staff at that middle school level, because we have realized that when we wait until that high school time, it's almost too late. And we really need to invest in that middle school area. So we've seen a big shift there.
I mean, if I could touch back on something that you were speaking on earlier about like the high school staff, and right, I think historically high school teachers better are supporting CCR initiatives, right? Because they see the immediate end goal after graduation. I also think about the importance of counselors' work or college and career staff members' work at the high school level and middle school, to your point, Amanda, about changing adults' mindsets. So we've done a lot of work on our team's last couple of years. Is the teaching staff may have one set of mindsets or beliefs about what our students can or are capable of doing, which may completely counteract or contradict what the vision and mission of the district and our specific department might be. And so I think there's a leadership role in there, Stephen, specifically for our counselors to help educate and then use that data, right? So like the last couple of years, what we've been doing is using college enrollment data, FAFSA data, advanced academic, AP scores, IB scores, to really blast that narrative to our high school teachers and middle school teachers to start to change that tide of adults' beliefs about our students and what they're capable of and what they can attain.
I love that. And it's actually making me think of a really incredible report that came out from the Schultz Family Foundation called The Broken Marketplace. And they looked at educators and navigators and found that 70% don't use research-based tools and assessments when working with young adults. And so it really does require this Herculean effort to make sure everyone within a system is updated with the latest information. And it's changing all the time. Think about the labor market. And so, thinking about the role of a counselor in helping identify those gaps in people's knowledge, Danyeil, how are you working with your school counseling teams to make sure that they have the most accurate information?
I think just to your point, understanding what research is out there and what is working, what's best practices. Again, a symbol is really one of the sort of cornerstones of some of the training and professional development that happens. We also have some standalone solutions that we are implementing this year, Counselor Collaborative, which is an amazing program that offers different sessions in topics that help support the practitioner's work. So everything from FAFSA to utilizing data, assessing students, assessing where students are, just ensuring that we are grounding in best practices and folks understand what their role is, how it's changing, and what skill sets and tools they need to be on the cutting edge.
Actually, Matthew had a really great question in the chat, wanting to know what tools and reports have you all found sort of to be the most useful in sharing best practices, updating teams with the latest information. What are the specific tools that you kind of keep in your tool belt to help make sure folks are aligned? And anyone can answer this.
I'm happy to chat a little bit about some alignment strategies that we've done the last couple of years. When many of our team members joined the district team, we recognized there's this disconnect between what administrators were hearing, what counselors were hearing, what district office was expecting. And so a couple of years ago, we began implementing what we call huddles, or post-secondary readiness huddles. And so our entire district post-secondary leadership team goes to each high school campus for about 2 hours, and we collectively bring together the high school principal, the assistant principal over student services, the entire counseling team, and the other college and career readiness positions on the high school campus to align efforts and messaging, discuss data points, and discuss initiatives that are upcoming that we need to prioritize. And then equally, I think is as important as a district leader is for us to hear feedback from those school-based staffs about areas that we can better support them, that they're seeing on the ground that are barriers or obstacles to the work that we're asking them to do, and what can we do in the moment to begin redirecting that work to make it smoother and more efficient for our students.
I think in Waukegan, we're always looking to make this better, but we have used some reports, right? I'm going to speak specifically about CTE and counseling and just making sure that we're kind of up to speed on like what the job market is. And we have something called Ed systems and using just the labor market reports so that we know what our connection is in-house with our CTE programs and pathways and what our tech campus programs and pathways and the number of students that we're sending and the certificates that they're earning and the dual credits that they're earning, because sometimes there was a disconnect with counselors understanding what those certificates that they were earning translated back to and the opportunities of what those meant and what doors those could open for our students. So it was making sure that they were aware of that and keeping up to speed with the job market trends, honestly, and what they could apply for afterwards.
So looking at actual labor market reports and in real time. So this isn't like aggregated from some state system that's giving you like tools and resources. You guys are looking at the raw data and trying to make sense of it yourself.
Yes, and I mean, I don't do that myself. I get help from my CTE coordinator, right? And we've even taken some of that and used that with our obviously like our 9-10 students, and we've used that even in some of our 8th grade classrooms.
Wow. So one question I had is, counselors have put in all this work. They're trying to prove return on investment to their leadership and to their superintendent, because it's not inexpensive to implement a lot of this stuff. So how are you seeing counselors and how are your teams showing their work and showing their impact and demonstrating like what that leadership has led to for parents, the community? And Danyeil, feel free to share, what tools you're sharing with our partners, but I'd love to hear from Amanda and also.
I feel like we could always do better in this, but the one thing that I think our college and career team does a really good job with is they put together just a quarterly newsletter highlighting the things that are going to happen and highlighting things that they have already done. And we do get a lot of traction with that, and parents, students, staff use that. And we're actually starting to push that out to our middle school families, students, and staff as well, because we got that request because it had so much traction. But I would actually love to hear ideas from other people. So if you put that in the chat, I would appreciate your ideas as well. We always try to do the other typical stuff like highlighting things on social media, but I feel like we're not good braggers about ourselves.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Amanda, is I think counselors often get the feedback that we're too humble because we're so in the work, caring for our students, that we often don't take a step back to celebrate that work, which is two sides of the coin, right? Because we're so dedicated to our students that's where we're spending our time, energy, and effort. But the flip side is that we could be better self-advocates by making sure we're telling that story. A couple of things that we've done in IPS is that some of our campuses have started embedding some quick highlights and snapshots or spotlights into staff meetings so that the broader school staff are seeing and knowing what the school counselors are doing. I think about one of our high schools. I was there 2 weeks ago, and she's like, "Oh, I'm glad I got this picture because I can quickly add it to our staff meeting this afternoon and celebrate with everybody what the team's doing." And I was like, that's really cool that the administrator found so much value in what was happening. She didn't want to take an hour, but she wants to take, quick 30 seconds, acknowledge the team and celebrate that win and kind of move on. And what we've also done at the district level is a part of our larger learning team, which our team is situated within. Our chief learning officer has said, "Hey, I want to hear from each department, and I want to hear from your celebrations every month. So across the district, we can be celebrating one another and acknowledging that work." Because I think, again, we get so siloed, especially the larger your district gets, the more siloed it can get. So it's good to celebrate with one another, to have sightlines to what's happening around you. And then the last thing I would share is I try to do the same thing. We have monthly principal training or professional development. And I think it's really important for us to elevate this work. And so an example is in the July principal PD, we celebrated all the high schools who met the state FAFSA goal, because that's an important work to the efforts that their student services team. We gave them a banner. They were in front of all of their peers, and we wanted to recognize and celebrate them. And so now, as you can imagine, our secondary principals are quite competitive, and everybody wants that banner every year, right? As just a small token, it's just a nod of appreciation, but to elevate the work that their teams are doing.
And I think, Amanda, I saw you come off mute, so I was going to allow you to share. But I do think that there are ways that you get in front of your staff at least once a month to share what is going on in your programs. Something that Amanda's team does really well is they have a community partners meeting every quarter. So they share out with the community things that are happening. It is used as like resource gathering and sharing and understanding around what students in Lake County need. I think another thing that Amanda's team does very well is presents to the board. So every chance they get, they are in front of the board saying, here are the wonderful things we're doing. Here's student outcomes that you can look at, but also speak to the students and understand how the student services program and all the things that they're doing is making an impact and a difference in the community.
Danielle, I saw Amanda and I both go, oh yeah, because I think that's a great thing. Like we do the same thing as well. And I didn't even think to highlight that, but I think it gives the more opportunity you can give to a variety of levels to see the input, whether it's your local school community, whether it's your school board or district teams, like the more you can brag on that work, the more buy-in I think you'll get from others. And they will also be inquisitive to like, oh yeah, let me tap into this. Oh, I've got this partner who can show up in this way.
This is actually like leading me to a question that I've been sitting with, because we do have some principals and school leaders that have joined us for this webinar. I'm wondering from you all, what is the role that the superintendent, that the school leader, that the assistant principal, what work can they do to sort of like elevate the work of their school counselors? And like, what wisdom is there in listening to and paying close attention to the work of the school counselors as it relates to post-secondary outcomes? This is a big one.
Yeah, that is a really good one. I think really being involved with a post-secondary leadership team and understanding what is going on in your student services department is like paramount. I think you should always have one-on-ones with each counselor whenever you can. It doesn't have to be a, weekly or, monthly collaboration or connection, but I do think that you need to understand what is going on in the student services at all times. I think from that perspective, if you know how to support and you understand the data, it is easier to walk in and sort of make demands or really ask for support if they feel like they're being seen and heard.
Daniel, that had me thinking about I teach a grad class for rising school leaders, and it's supervision of school counselors. And I'm appreciative that program, sees the value of a counselor so critical that they have a specific class on how future leaders can supervise school counselors in the most effective way. And so I think if you're not in a preparation program, of course, that the best way is to educate yourself on what should a school counselor be doing. Because if we as leaders, whether it's building or district, don't know what they should be doing, either we will assign them inappropriate duties or they will make up their own program, which in most cases is great, right? But also for consistency across campuses and across the buildings, I think it's really important for building leaders, principals, or assistant principals to do their own research and understanding about what a licensed professional school counselor should be doing in all three domains to elevate their campus. And there's a lot of research out there about how school counselors positively impact school improvement plans, or can positively impact school improvement plans when tapped on in the appropriate and correct categories. And I think that type of research is critical for our leaders.
Yes to all of that. I was going to echo all of that, but definitely that post-secondary leadership team. I think them administrators participating on that team so they know what is happening is a huge place for counselors to advocate for what they need specifically with post-secondary. I was also going to add what Austin said, as well as the counselors making sure that their administrator knows what their counseling goals and plan is for the year with their data. I am very big on making sure that our counselors use the ASCA model, use the ASCA standards, are advocating for themselves in that way, and make sure that their principals and assistant principals know what that looks like, and that they are up to speed on what their professional areas of expertise are. So that has been a big shift, I think, for our district as well, because I think sometimes they were looked at as maybe not in all of the areas that they do, and not utilized in all of the ways that they could be, especially when it comes to, I always say that like counselors were really the first doing MTSS. They have always applied that strategy to everything that they do. So we were doing it first, really. And yeah, right. So, I just want the administrators to make sure they knew that. And I was a former administrator, so I keep trying to push that to them.
So many strong examples just within that answer of ways that counselors were showing up as leaders. I am personally just like so encouraged to hear from all of you and the ways that post-secondary advising and support are really getting baked into your schools. That sort of shuffling of priorities where, there's so many different things that college and career readiness and what's next for our students is really, it's moved from the back burner to the forefront in a lot of ways. And that's what we love to see at OneGoal. It's very encouraging. So thank you so much. We have to leave it there. Gosh, I feel like we could talk for another 30 minutes. Where's our hour and a half long webinars? That's what I'm going to advocate for. But thank you for sharing your insights and experiences, Amanda, Danyeil, Austin. And thank you to our audience for joining the conversation. So we hope you leave with some strategies, inspiration, and concrete ideas to strengthen college and career readiness in your schools. I want to invite everyone to scan this QR code and join us for our next webinar in November, which is Beyond the Buzz, using AI to strengthen post-secondary advising. So we'll be exploring how AI tools can actually support rather than replace the critical work counselors and educators do to guide students. We aren't afraid of AI at OneGoal, but you can scan the QR code and on the screen and click the link to the chat to register now. We hope to see you there for another great discussion and more practical strategies that you can take back with you to your schools and districts. Please follow OneGoal on social media and visit our website to learn more about how we're working to transform advising so that students can achieve their greatest aspirations. And thank you again